Alright guys, what is up? It is officially week 6 now. A day into week 6, I should say. Tuesday. A little late on the video here, but I did have the setup out in time, so if you're in the Discord, you did get to see it. Let's load it up and show you what we're working with. I have... Let me just make sure. Limaland. Race. Okay. 1 second. Let me exit Discord. Okay. So... Limaland, a few things here. I went a little bit lower on the stagger than I had originally planned. I think the original setup that I was practicing with was 11.5. And a couple things. 11.5 can work. I think 11.5 stagger would be pretty good for the bottom. It'll also be pretty good for a not very slick top. The only reason I dropped it down to 11 is because I did go half an inch on front stagger here, and then we kept the car wheel spacings a little bit looser than normal, not crazy looser, obviously, but you know we're only out to 14 on the left rear, and we didn't pull it all the way in on the right. We're at 16.5, so we have half an inch of leeway here on both sides, so I dropped the stagger another half an inch to kind of make up for that. And then, if you guys read the comments in the Discord, we're going 1025s in the front. A little experiment that I worked out. Was that last week? I think it was last week. We ran an SSR Wednesday night 360 race at Weed Sport, and I started on the pole, and I figured, you know, I've got to do something different. Weed Sport's kind of one of those places where I always fall off, or, you know, I'm good at one point of the race. You know, it's just not good all 30 laps, basically. And I wanted to try something different in that Weed Sport setup, which actually, let me pull that up real quick so I can show you. Weed Sport R4. So I went really quite a bit different than I've ever really done in a setup. I didn't go very high on the rear turns because I knew I probably wouldn't run the top that much, and then I ended up running the top in 3 and 4 every single lap. So it actually was fine though on only half a turn up. But yeah, I went 1025s here. But we're talking Limaland. We'll get to Weed Sport when we get to Weed Sport week. But I wanted to try and keep this kind of similar. I figured Limaland would be kind of similar, or you know, like ish, around the top at least, where you can kind of really send it pretty good through the first half of the corner, and then you always seem to kind of have to back out of it on the exit, right? That's kind of the same thing with like turn 4 at Weed Sport when you run the top. You kind of got to get out of it to make sure you don't crash into the wall on the outside. So I softened up the bars in the front at Weed Sport, and then I tried it here on 60%, and it felt really good. So I liked it a lot. The only thing that I will say, and when I show you the laps here in a minute, I'll go through that. But just a quick peek at the setup here. You know, 618 gear. I talked about that in the Discord as well. I like having a really short gear here at Limaland to really pull me out of the corners, but whether it's slick or not. I usually don't go below 602, and I'll start qualifying on a 621. So when I'm qualifying, I'll be on a 621. If it dies like completely, like a league race with like 50 cars, yeah, I'll be on like a 602. But for an official, I felt really good on 618 on 60%. You might have to go 612, 602, maybe 596 if you're still getting the hang of throttle control and stuff like that. But don't be afraid to try the 618, especially with the 30 wing, because you're going to be bogging down the car quite a bit anyway. So you're going to want some gear to pull you out of these corners. And then I'm going to talk about the rear end a little bit here. It is a little tall for a track that's not super banked, but I'll get into that when I go over the laps. Just keep an eye on that. You know, it's 1.5, 1.25, and then 1025s on these corners as well as the front. So that's really all to show in the setup. Everything's pretty standard wise for me, except for these 1025 bars. So I'm gonna load the other session real quick. I have a replay saved. let me keep that up. That way you guys can see. Found a new way to record. So to record that, and I can still have other stuff on my screen, and you guys can keep looking at that. Let me find my replays real quick. And I one of these days I am gonna try to. Oh shoot, that's gonna try and launch it right now. Okay, let me end this. Oh shoot. End. There we go. Exit. See if it'll launch it now. There it goes. So, one of these days I am gonna probably edit these videos. I might even do it on this one and just cut it out, but we'll see. Just for time's sake, I try to just literally record and then upload as fast as I can. So, that's why I usually don't cut out all this nonsense with the loading screens and stuff. Plus, we get to see like pretty pictures of Limaland, and yeah. I think on this one, let me check my laps. Well, let me check my car here. And my camera's all messed up, of course, per usual. Okay, so yeah, you're gonna see obviously my faster lap times were up here before I started making adjustments, but you know, that's obvious, you know, because the track is a little bit better right now at this point than it is later on. But this is your line you're going to run really for the whole time. I'm going to go down here to where I actually put in the long run, where it was a lot slicker. And you can see how consistent my lap times were. I mean, we're mid 11.9s to 12.0s every single lap. So that's pretty damn consistent. And that's what you need over a 30 lap race. Down here, I think for the last like 4 or 5 laps, let me see if I'm being truthful. Yeah, I tried to drag and brake a little bit just to kind of like see if like settling the car with the brake would be a little bit better. More brake than I was using earlier in this, and it was slower. So I just stopped. I pulled off. But yeah, let's just watch this. You will see that I do tap the brake on entry. And then kind of after that, I don't. I kind of just use the throttle to get me through the rest of the corner. And then this exit number 4 is why I wanted to talk about the rear end being a little bit taller with the 1025 bars and then the 1.5 turn on the left and then the 1.25 on the right rear. So when you raise the car, you do 2 things, right? You tighten it up a little bit and you give yourself more forward drive in the slick when you're pointed straight. But you take away side bite as the car gets higher. So if you need side bite, obviously your car is going to need to be lower, and you lose forward drive. So the reason I know a lot of you guys have been asking me like, man, you're going positive turns in the rear, and like that's something like I've never done. It's just a new thing that we tried towards the end of like the pro season that started to really help us all. When we're running the top, we've just got so much better speed coming out of every corner that, you know, we realize, hey, this might be the way to do this. And ever since then, I've kind of just stuck with it. You do lose a lot of that bite on the kind of middle entry exit, you know, the whole corner, really. But you have so much rolling speed down the straightaway now, you can use less throttle through the corner and then get back into it out of the corner more so than I was able to when I had the cars much lower. Yeah, I had, you know, pretty decent side bite and cornering speed was a little bit better with the car lower, but my overall speed, my average lap time, my full 30 laps were a little bit slower than when I was practicing with taller rear end cars. So the theory is that when running the top, sacrifice a little bit of side bite because you've got a little bit of cushion to lean on, and give yourself a little bit taller car and have a little bit more forward drive. Now, Limaland is a little bit tricky because coming out of turn 4, you need a little bit of bite. And you'll see me coming out of this corner every time. The car just kind of wants to go this way. It just keeps wanting to drift and drift and drift and drift out to this wall. And this track will bite you because this wall kind of swoops in right here, right? So you can kind of clip the right side tires there and end your night and end a lot of cars' nights if you're in a line in front of a lot of people. So you do lose that. You lose the bite coming out of 4 a little bit. with the car a little bit taller, but when it's really slicked off, it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be a lot better than the car being a lot lower for you than it would be having it lower to the ground. Sacrificing that side bite on the corner of exit of 4, but you can see I'm not getting back into the throttle till here where I know, okay, I'm not drifting out anymore. And you can see it when you're in the car. I'll go in here into cockpit mode and try to show you guys what I mean. Am I in the middle here? Let me try and raise this up a little bit. Okay. So I'm here and I feel like, okay, my car's not biting, right? It's not driving on the right rear. And a lot of you guys have been talking about the new tire model with the late models and the big blocks, the UMPs. It feels like all of a sudden you can feel the right rear, right? Like, man, this thing's like digging on that wheel. We still don't have that in these cars. So you can't really build a setup with that in it unless you put, a crazy amount of stagger in it and then you're spinning out loose, right? So there's ways to do it, on those new cars and really feel the right rear, but not so much yet in these. So having that problem with these brick tires on these sprint cars, you kind of have to sacrifice some things in order to make yourself better in more areas rather than just a few. And one of those ways for me is having the rear end a little bit taller. It makes me better down the straightaways and a little bit worse where I need side bite. But when I'm running the top, I don't need that much side bite through the whole corner. I might need side bite here on the exit of 4, and I wish I had a little bit more, but the car feels so much good for 90% of the track, I'm not going to sacrifice that one area that needs a little bit more, because if I go into this setup and start tweaking something, okay, let me get a little bit better on the exit of 4, well then I might screw up my entry to 1 or my middle corner in 1 and 2, and there's no point in that. If I can just be 95 to 90% throttle instead of 100% right here, and then get into it there, that's something I'm willing to sacrifice. And if you're planning on running the bottom here this week at Limaland, you're saying like, man, I'm not comfortable being that close to the wall. What can I do to this? Lower the car. Definitely lower the rear end. You're gonna want more side bite for the bottom, and you're gonna want to be looser. Believe it or not, yes, you want to be loose when you're running the bottom of the track, because there's nothing worse, there's nothing slower than pushing tight when you're trying to run the very, very bottom of the track. It just doesn't. It's counterproductive to what you're trying to do on the bottom. You're trying to make the corner as short as you're trying to make the track as short as possible, and then you push tight and you're up in the slick for another half a second. So you're kind of doing the opposite of what you want to do. You don't want to be too tight like you would on the top here with this setup that is pretty tight. I mean, it's one of my looser ones, I'll give you that, but it's pretty tight for the top. And you can see my wing is only at -3 here, I think. So I could have made this even tighter on the top if I wanted to. But Limaland, I kind of like a loose race car, because you never know. It might go to the bottom for 3 laps, or it might go to the middle for, 1 lap. But if you go under caution and all of a sudden your bottom or your middle goes away and you need to run the top until some marbles form back up in the middle or the bottom of the track, that's what this setup's for. To me, that's just such a... It's a much better pros versus cons list when I have the car set up like this than it is when I set it up lower, hoping maybe the bottom will come in. And I talked to Jeremy Weigel last week. He was running a Charlotte 410 official, and he was like, man, my car feels broke. My car feels broke, like I rubbed the wall. I was like, hey, your car's not broke. Just get out of the slick. And if he watches this video, he's probably gonna laugh that I'm bringing this up again. But I hope he doesn't get mad. I told him, get out of the middle. You're in the slick. Look how much grip is on the top there. You could put your both right side tires in the grip up on the cushion there. And what's the point of running 13th in the middle or bottom of the track just because, oh man, I'm not confident enough to go to the top. Go to the top. You got to practice at some point, right? You can't just forever run the bottom and the middle if you ever want to get better at iRacing. You've got to be able to go run the top. And that's why so many of my setups have been positive rear turns in the back. And that's why so many of them have been tighter than a banjo string, so you guys can have the confidence to go up there knowing you're not going to spin out, knowing that you're not going to, you know, get loose and spin it down the track and wreck or, you know, whatever. That's the way I build my setups. And I told him, I said, go to the top, just do it, just for me. You're in like 17th place. What have you got to lose? So finally, he goes to the top. He's going maybe only 50 to 80% throttle almost every lap. But all of a sudden, he's passing cars. Next thing you know, he was like in 6th or 7th. I can't remember where he finished, 6th or 7th. And he had a good enough car to finish 5th. But there was no cautions after like 1 early on. So he just kind of ran out of time to catch up to guys. And I said, look what you did. You went up to the top and you were just smooth, kept your right side tires in the grip the whole time, and you passed, what was it, like 11 cars? It was crazy. I said, that's the best I've ever seen you drive, all because you finally just said, F it, I'm going to the top, and you trusted what I was trying to tell you. And that's a message to all of you. Just try the top. There's no point to run in 15th or 14th. If you're going to come out here and run officials just to run 14th and 15th, or like, ooh, I'm going to finish 9th this time. Well, finishing 9th isn't fun. If you're going to go out there and just be satisfied with finishing 9th, then this setup probably isn't going to be for you. This setup's going to be for someone who's willing to go and put the hammer down, try to run the top. You're going to wreck. If you've never done it and you're not practicing on it like every week like we do, you're probably gonna wreck. But you don't learn the limits of these cars until you wreck over and over and over again. The reason we got so much better, especially myself over the past year, I wasn't that good about a year ago. I didn't make the Pro Series. I was not finishing well in league races, not finishing well in official races. And finally I just said, I've got to practice. I've got to force myself to go run the top. And eventually, I have confidence that you guys can do that in all these setups. Now, granted, when the tire model changes, if it ever does, there's rumors that it's really, really difficult to put on these cars for some odd reason. But if it ever changes and I've got to refigure out all this setup stuff, yeah, it's going to be probably tough again to go out and do all this and run the top for 30 laps, or, try and hit the bottom perfect for 15 laps. But guess what? I'm going to have to practice just like everybody else is going to have to practice. So, yeah, just putting this setup in your car isn't going to fix you. It's not going to be like, man, I can run the top all of a sudden. No, it's absolutely not going to be able to do that. You're definitely going to have to practice with it. And like I told Jeremy, dude, just run 80% throttle. Put the setup in. You're probably going to have to move the wing forward, because when you're not full throttle in certain situations and you don't have that comfort level of, pumping the gas when you need to really, to really turn you, or stabbing the brake just a touch, when you don't have that like visual muscle memory with your hands and your feet and your eyes, that's a learned muscle memory type of thing, right? When you see the car or feel the car do something, you know exactly how to do it without even thinking about it. But you put in the hours practicing on the top over and over and over and over. Eventually, you get that stuff down. Eventually, hopefully we get a tire model. We're all going to have to redo that practice, but start now. Get a head start and learn what the cushion feels like now before that comes out, and then you'll be ahead of the game. I think that was all I needed to say. I can't remember if there's anything else. I've already been talking for 19 minutes, but I just wanted to say that because Limaland official races, it is going to be very top dominant. And the shorter gear, the 618 gear, this is what I'm running in this video. Your straightaways are probably going to be a little bit slicker than this. Obviously, the pre-gen slicks off a little bit weirder. than it will in your official race. The straightaways are probably going to be slicker than this. I had a lot of grip. So yeah, if it does get that slick, just do be careful with the 618. You can see me getting to full throttle on these straightaways, but if you leave the 618 in it and you've got a black strip down both sides of the track, unless you can put your right side tires within an inch of the wall, you're probably not going to be able to get to full throttle, especially on a 618 gear. Then yeah, I would experiment with dropping it down to 602, 596 in that range, and then go from there. But you could see this setup. It's more stability than and it's same thing with Weed Sport last week. This is more stability on 1025s all around the car than I felt in a long time. And I have a few things I'm going to try with shocks here. I'm going to go back to Charlotte in a 410 and try a few things with shocks, because my brain just won't let me not figure out how those guys can keep the car so flat and straight and not bumpy. So I'm going to be experimenting with some shocks here over the next couple weeks, and if I find anything, I'll definitely let you guys know. But in the meantime, as always, good luck this week. I hope you watch this thing all the way through and take those words to heart and just force yourself to practice the top. You can see me there on the final lap here. I finally hit the wall and rubbed it. Not hit it, but I rubbed it, and then just finally had said that felt good enough. But yeah, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to flip. You're going to wreck. Hey, it happens, man. Just take it, move on, try it again in the next one. Put the track on 60%, 70%, and just try it yourself in a practice lobby. Yeah, the cushion's not going to be exactly the same as it is in an official, but it's going to be pretty close. And you're going to get the feel for, how close you really are to that wall and how much closer you can actually get. So, again, I'll get out of here for this one. Is it Bristol for 410s this week? I think it is. That video will be a lot shorter. And, yeah. Anyway, take care. Have fun. Good luck this week. Let me know how you guys do. I really want to hear feedback this week, because Limaland is a track I have kind of struggled at in the past. It's hard to pass here. So if you do get in traffic, it's kind of like Fairbury. You got to use that cut down line. You've got to pick and choose when to slide. You've got to try and hit the bottom perfect sometimes. But a majority of the time, it is going to be a cut down line kind of in the middle of each corner. So I know I didn't include that in these laps, but it's got to get pretty slick for that to happen. Other than that, just if you get stuck behind cars, you're going to have to wait for mistakes. You're going to have to throw sliders and hope they stick. I would probably shoot, my sliders in 3 and 4 more so than I would in 1 and 2. But you can also run through the middle a little bit here. I mean, there's a lot of grip at Limaland because everybody is going to run the top. So, but yeah, there's grip in the middle. You can try to pull on cars around you and then slide them in the next corner, and then hope you can fend them off. But other than that, I mean, it's going to be tight racing. It's Limaland. It's a quarter mile. That's how it is every week. That's why you guys, I'm sure you hear everybody in the lobby complaining all the time, side by side, and then somebody wheels somebody, and it's not on purpose. It's just close racing here. So, again, have fun. I'll get out of your hair for this one, but again, let me know how it goes, and all you take care.